What was your school's huge scandal? My school district gave all high school students laptops that they could bring home with them to use for school work. They could also remotely activate the webcams and spy on students, although of course they didn't tell us this. One kid got caught smoking weed this way while he was in his room at home and I think was going to get suspended. He sued the district in response for invasion of privacy and won the case. It got national media attention for a little while. Good for him. My friend's sister got suspended for a fight she got into after school, off school grounds. Their parents fought it and got the suspension reversed. I'm tired of schools thinking they have any say in what kids do on their own time. Unless a student specifically gets school personnel involved, it's none of their business. In the 8th grade, there was an orgy in the bathroom. An orgy. In 8th grade. At school. They got busted after teachers heard them moaning. They all got suspended. Obviously this was entirely inappropriate, but given the difficulty that grown adults have organizing an orgy, not entirely unimpressive. The assistant principal died in a car accident. There was a big Samba school assembly in his honor. His wife said a few words, and then his 14-year-old daughter came to the microphone to say a few words. She sort of snapped and unloaded about how he was not a good guy. He was a monster who had been abusing her and her little sisters and using them for kiddie porn for years, and she was glad he was dead. I've never heard a room full of people grow so silent, so fast. Damn. How'd the wife/mom react to that? She just stood stone still. Hard to say if it was because she was shocked and didn't see it coming or because the terrible family secret was out. The girl walked out and a teacher who was leading the assembly stammered for the band to play because that was next on the agenda. Only about a quarter of the band kids even picked up their instruments, but the rest of the family exited awkwardly at that point. A year after I graduated HS, a woman was stabbed 40+ times with a pair of scissors while jogging on our track on a Sunday. One of the guys in that year's senior class wound up hanging around the track over the following days, obsessively pestering investigators with questions and theories, so naturally some suspicion fell on him. When the woman's description of her assailant, she survived, matched him spot on, he was arrested, and both the scissors used and his bloody clothes were found at his house. Dude was sentenced to 10+ years in prison. End of story, right? Wrong. 2 years after the trial, the jailed kid is ordered released after his little brother, 1 year younger and a dead look-alike for his big bro, is popped for violent sexual assault on a woman, and confesses to the stabbing during questioning. Turns out the older brother took the fall for him, falsely confessing so that he could keep his younger sib out of jail. Dude never told anyone, but did admit the lie after his younger brother's arrest and confession. I knew both kids when I was a student there. Both brothers were definitely thought to be weirdly intense, but their behavior was attributed to their military dad's strict style of parenting, and not anything darker. Amazing how the human body works. On one end you have man gets punched once in bar fight, dies, and on the other it's woman gets stabbed 40 times, survives. We had 2 teachers arrested for secretly recording kids in separate incidents. Our woodshop teacher had a low-angle camera on the floor pointing up towards the seats, and also would slide an iPad out from under his desk when girls would walk up to it. He let a student borrow his flash drive, who found the evidence. Then our speech teacher was caught hiding a camera underneath the sink in one of the private bathrooms that special education used. Second one is in a whole new zip code of screwed up. Someone spray painted _______ is a kiddie diddler, Ask _______ on the wall of the school. Everyone saw it when they showed up. The teacher was nowhere to be found that day. The girl was also nowhere to be found. I remember it was a Friday, cause the day was crazy with people talking about it, but it sort of died down on the weekend. Monday we find out the guy killed himself that weekend. Later, talking to the girl, sadly it was very true. Others came forward later. It was a pretty shitty situation. Well, I don't know if this was a school-wide scandal, and it was years after I graduated, but it's a scandal and a half. I went on holiday with my recently graduated brother. I graduated 6 years before him. He had noticed his friends had posted online that they were in that same city too, so we all met up. With this group of super young-looking dudes, all around 18-19s, there was an older-looking woman I kind of recognized, and I assumed it was an older sister. I spoke to her saying, "Hey, I know you from somewhere," and she says, "Yeah, I teach at the school." It hit me that I'd seen her speech at my other brother's graduation 3 years before that. Then it hit me that she was holding hands and kissing this guy who looked about 15. And she was in her mid-30s, not to mention his ex-teacher, even though they only hung out before he graduated and then they were instantly official. What the actual fuck? Apparently they now live together and she still teaches there. Super weird. When I was a junior, a freshman girl came into school before first bell, wielding steak knives, and then proceeded to stab 10 kids before a teacher tackled her and apprehended her. Best part was, there was a whole case afterwards of angry parents trying to get that particular teacher fired for putting his hands on a student. A girl in my year lied about having a sexual relationship with a teacher, in gross detail might I add. We all knew that she was straight up crazy and was making it up, but the school board obviously had to take it very seriously and the teacher was fired. Worst part was that the teacher's wife was also a teacher at the school, and so, even though she wasn't fired, she pretty much had to leave her job as well. The school board eventually figured out the girl was lying and offered both teachers their positions back, but they both declined. Gonna try to keep this as vague as possible to avoid doxing the perpetrators. The class before me did some things that led the district to ban senior cruises, i.e., a vacation near or just after the end of the last school year. Granted, they couldn't really enforce it, but they did ban all fundraising events for senior cruises from taking place on school grounds. On this senior cruise, one of the girls got blackout drunk and passed out on the floor. One of our star football players decided it would be a great idea to gather everyone up, strip the girl naked, and cram all manner of phallic objects into places they did not belong. Also wrote all manner of slurs on her. Kids were taking photos of the deed, and there was even a videotape. The ringleader and 1 or 2 of his buddies got some jail time. But everyone else got away with fines and / or community service, and most of their records are sealed, due to having been minors at the time of the crime. It also helped that several of the parents involved were lawyers, and one of them may have even been the local DA. I knew the guy's sister, she was in my classes. I never saw her smile again after the news broke. When I was in grade 9 there was a student in grade 12 who overdosed and died. It was very hard on a lot of people in the school. A girl who was in grade 9 decided to break into the recently deceased girl's home and steal her clothes and personal items and posted pictures and videos of her burning these things on her Facebook. This obviously did not go over well with the rest of the student body, and for the next few days this girl had a huge target on her back. It came down to every 5 minutes a student would pull the fire alarm and force every person out of the school so that people could try to find this girl and fuck her up. The student was being protected by the principal, and no one could get near her. The fire alarm was pulled around 10 times that day. You would barely sit back at your desk after being inside before there was another fire alarm. A 7-year-old kid was found dead in the school's washroom, bearing brutal knife slashes on his throat. It was a national news for many months during which the investigation was ongoing. Initially it was claimed by the police that one of the bus drivers was responsible for the murder. He confessed of the same, a day later, claiming that he was going to sexually assault the kid, but when he resisted, the driver killed him. But the kid's parents were not convinced that that was the case and claimed that the school was hiding a bigger conspiracy. Since many of the evidence in the crime scene were tampered with before the police were notified and arrived on the scene, they pressured the government to involve the CBI and let them investigate instead of the local policemen. Later on, giving in to the rising pressure from the whole country, including a Supreme Court ruling, the CBI was called in to investigate. The CBI are basically the Indian equivalent of the FBI. During the investigation, the CBI found out that the driver was just a scapegoat and was forced to confess, which was claimed by other drivers since the very beginning. The driver later said that he was forced under police torture to admit to killing the child. As the investigation continued, it turned out that the murder was committed by a 15-year-old kid, who apparently wanted to postpone the upcoming parent-teacher conference since the parents were gonna be notified of his recent bullying attitude towards his classmates. So this guy decided that the best way to get them delayed was for kill someone and cause a police investigation in the school. His name was never publicly announced, but the students obviously knew who the guy was. I knew him personally and I could never have guessed in 1,000 years that that guy could do something like that. It's also unbelievably scary to think that he also almost got away with the murder. I don't know how the rules work in regards to this, so I don't know if I should post a link for a news report on this, but I'll do so if anyone asks for it.